Welcome to Stillspeakpod. I hope everybody is having a wonderful evening. This video was supposed to come out last night after I announced that it would be. Unfortunately, that did not work out for me, and so I woke up very, very early this morning to do it, and I spent 2 hours ranting and raving about this case that I'm bringing you, only for the app that I use to lose all of the recording. And when it's 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and you lose something like that, it definitely doesn't make for a great day. But it is what it is, and I'm kind of glad that it happened because this case got me pretty heated, and I started to go off on this massive rant, and I didn't want to do that. It was an angry rant. And I also found another piece of information that I think is important to discuss as far as theories are concerned involving this case. My husband is going to be doing some research for me to find me a better app to do this, because this is not the first time that's happened. And it's so frustrating, especially for someone like myself who doesn't have a whole lot of time to even record these videos. And so when that happens, it's a huge waste of my time, and there's no way in hell that I'm going to sit for another 2 hours to record again when I just already spent 2 hours, because I don't have a total of 4 hours to do that. So I'm back tonight to finally do it. By the time you see this, it will probably be midnight, because I have to record it. I'll be interrupted probably 100 times to tell the kids to go to bed, and then I have to upload it and blah, 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 blah. Okay, enough of that. Hopefully it cooperates with me right now, because if not, I may throw my laptop out of my damn window. So let's get to it, because I have a lot to say about this story. I want to start off by talking about child welfare and how it got started. What is some of the history? Now, it actually has a very long history, and there was a lot of progress made through the years. If you want to dig deeper, we can do that in another video and talk about child welfare services as a whole in an entire video of itself. But I'm just going to point out some of the dates connected to how it got started, who introduced it, and what the goal was originally. And there's a reason, and we'll get to that. In 1903, over morning coffee, a woman named Lillian Wald and Florence Kelly discussed the need for a federal bureau that would collect information on children. And an associate for one of the women, Dr. Edward T. Devine, wired the idea to President Theodore Roosevelt. And the president actually replied and said, "Come down here and tell me about it." And, you know, we're in 2022 now, and next year this will be 120 years since that morning coffee between these two women. 1909, the first in a series of White House conferences on children and youth, gathered together for discussing, children's issues and the negative effects of institutional care for dependent and neglected children. The conference concluded with a list of proposals that acknowledged the importance of keeping children in their homes, called for foster family care, and advocated for state oversight of foster homes, adoption agencies, and medical care for foster children. Now, right before all this, in the late 1800s, children were actually shipped via train to different areas, to the more wealthy areas. So the poor children were taken from their parents and sent to live with wealthy families so that they can get, better education and be more, taken care of. And that's when it started to be discussed in the early 1900s that, there needs to be something going on here. And like I said, we can get into all of that if you want to in an entire video. It could be really educational for us because I bet that most of us don't know the thorough history of how this all unfolded. So anyways, moving forward, the Children's Bureau was founded in 1912. On April 9th, 1912, President William Howard Taft signed the law establishing the Children's Bureau. And it took a lot of grassroots efforts, 11 bills, and 6 years in Congress to pass the Children's Bureau bill. And the final law called on the new agency to investigate and report upon all matters pertaining to the welfare of a child and among classes of all different types of people. In particular, they were in charge of looking at infant mortality, the birth rate, orphanages, juvenile courts, dangerous occupations, accidents and diseases of children, and employment. At that time, there was a great concern about child labor and children being very, very young being forced to work. You have to think of the time. So one of the biggest focus for them was trying to figure out how that can be somewhat regulated, okay? Because they were like, there's 3 and 4-year-olds out working in the fields in these dangerous jobs, and basically that's not okay. And they actually even hired a photographer to take these chilling almost pictures of these children, filthy and sweaty and doing really crazy jobs that you would never see a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old doing now. So then we go into World War I, right? And then the Great Depression and World War II. And you have to remember, during the Great Depression, there was a lot of poverty. And my stepfather's mother, she lived through the Great Depression. And, they were really poor. It was a really, really bad time. And it stuck with her because she lived through that period of time. And, you fast forward into the 90s when she would come to our house for the holidays. She would wrap up every piece of food in aluminum foil. And I'm not talking a whole plate of food. I'm talking if you took a piece of bread and you had a small piece of that bread left, that small piece of bread used to get wrapped up in aluminum foil. Because she was of the mindset that you don't waste, because they lived so poorly back then. Now, we would joke with her and make fun of her about it, right? And it's something that's obviously stuck with me 30 years later. But if you think about it, she did that for a reason. When you experience something like that, it's really traumatic and it sticks with you for your entire life, because she was doing this, in her 70s. And she was a child during the Great Depression. And when the men were going off to war, is when women had to start going out into the workforce. And prior to that, women were mostly home with the children and the father went out to work. And so even though the child welfare thing was started, or the Children's Bureau was started in 1912, it really wasn't until much later that they actually started to investigate neglect, because they had bigger issues. They had poverty issues. and the Great Depression and 2 massive wars, and then the Korean War, and women going back to the workplace, and the homes turning into a one-parent home, and that parent being the one who was working. And it was a much different time, right? Nowadays, you have a ton of single parents who have to work, but this was a different time. And so there was a lot more to focus on as far as child labor, the children in poverty, and so on. And so they didn't really do what they do now. That didn't come to much later. And by much later, we're talking into the 60s. So in 1950 to 1953, the United States, had the Korean War, and, we withdrew, and thousands of children ended up being orphaned by this conflict and were left behind. And the national interest in the fate of these children, many of whom were fathered by American soldiers, sparked the first significant wave of international adoptions in the United States. In 1962, the Public Welfare Amendments of 1962 made significant changes to the child welfare provision of the Social Security Act. Among these, the bill made permanent a 1961 provision authorizing federal matching funds to states on behalf of children in foster care. In return, states were required to develop a plan for each child in foster care, including periodic reviews of necessities for their care and provide services to expedite children's safe return home. The law created administrative links between child welfare and public assistance programs that would have been implicated for decades to come. The 1962 amendments also authorized the Children's Bureau to make grants to institutions of higher learning for child welfare training projects, and these grants were first awarded in 1963. Now, here is when abuse and neglect became a big focus. In January of 1962, prompted by increased reports of physical child abuse, the Bureau held a small meeting in Washington, D.C. to explore how it might provide leadership. Had a knock on my door. But anyways, how it might provide leadership to a state and community seeking to address the problem. During the summer of 1963, the Children's Bureau distributed suggested language for state laws requiring doctors and hospitals to report suspected abuse. Thanks in part to the Bureau's leadership on this issue, all states enacted child abuse reporting laws by the end of 1967. Between 1961 and 1967, there was a 50% increase in the number of children receiving child welfare services in an average month. At the same time, though, the composition of children in foster care changed. Enhanced economic supports for families, a result of President Johnson's war on poverty programs, meant fewer families were breaking up due to poverty alone. As a result of this, a large percentage of children who entered foster care at that time did so for reasons that caused greater emotional disturbances, such as abuse and neglect, parent instability, and substance abuse. So this was the big shift. This was the big shift into, let's no longer take children from parents who are poor. Let's start focusing more on this insane amount of reports we're getting about child abuse, and let's lower the amount of kids who are in foster care and let it be just more so kids who have bigger issues, who are being abused, neglected, whose parents weren't stable, and whose parents had substance abuse issues. Now, I said there's a reason why I went through that, right? Because even though there was intentions and they did start it a long time ago now, it really did not turn into what it is today until the 60s, which means that some of you, including myself, may have a grandparent or a great-grandparent or even parent who lived during a time where they didn't have this as a backup for children who were abused, right? We're still living in a time where we have a close connection to someone out there who lived during a time where your neighbor couldn't pick up a phone and say, hey, I saw so-and-so beating their kid's ass, and I think you should investigate it. No, it was on the parents to take care of their child. There was no accountability of what discipline the people were doing to their own children. I would be the absolute first person to say to you that the system is not great. There are children who are taken away from good parents. There's a false claim out there that if a child is taken, it's for good reason, that they don't just take kids for no reason. That is not true. A little investigating will uncover to you that is simply not true. Now, more times than not, they do have reason to remove the child, but there are many stories and cases where it was unwarranted. And there are many cases where they have greatly failed a child. But again, there are way more cases of success stories than there are not, okay? And sometimes in these cases, these children are in homes, foster homes, that are actually worse than what their original circumstances were. I look at it this way, let's talk about the police for a quick second here. That has been a huge topic after the riots last year and stuff like that. And, I think people are making too broad of statements. Cops are cops, and they're human like the rest of us. Are there bad cops? Yes, abso-freaking-lutely, as much as there are bad people, right? But are all cops bad? No, the great majority are good. The great majority love their job. The great majority makes little money to do something they love to do, which is to protect and serve. Yes, you have bad apples. The same thing goes for child welfare services and CPS, DCF, DCYF. There's all these different acronyms for each state. The great majority, there is success, but there are many stories where there wasn't success, and there were bad apples, and bad apples dropped once too many times, okay? And so we have to acknowledge that. At the same time, though, keeping in mind that you most likely know somebody who lived during a time where these agencies did not exist, okay? Keep that in mind. When you conceive a child and you bring a child into this world, whether you're the father, the mother, whatever, okay? I've had 3 children myself. That child is your responsibility, okay? It starts with you. You're the one who did the hanky-panky. You're the one who conceived. You're the one who brought the child into the world. The full responsibility of the child falls on you. Financially, emotionally, mentally, nurture them, care for them, bathe them, feed them, change them, make sure they go to school, make sure they get medical care, and more. I think in rare circumstances, okay, that's the key word, in rare circumstances, these agencies are basically not an excuse, but, what's the word I'm looking for here? I can't think of the word, but basically a net and a way for parents who have substance abuse issues, who are abusing the child, neglecting the child, for them to get out of the responsibility of their child. Well, they can just do whatever to this child and they don't care about the child anyway. So if CPS gets involved, no big deal. And that's that. They just don't care what that does to the child. Of course, at the same time, there are circumstances where these agencies are a good thing. They are. And they have saved a lot of children, even though they have failed many of them. I don't think that it's all one-sided, one way or the other. We have to kind of be in the middle on this. I am of the mindset that I believe in less government. That is me. I feel is, whatever you want to do with your life, as long as it doesn't in some way affect me, I don't care. I don't care what you do. And so I would actually like for these agencies to be limitedly used, only because parents, all parents, at least all the parents I know, one of their worst fears is some nosy body reporting them to CPS, okay, and losing their children. And too many people have taken advantage of these agencies, and they've put in false accusations and false calls and try to destroy families because they're having an argument with someone. You see it on YouTube all the time between creators and subscribers. People call in CPS because they're arguing with somebody on YouTube when they don't know that person. They don't know what's going on in their home. They're just wanting to be petty, and they're causing a lot of grief. And when they do these sorts of things, they're actually taking away attention from the children who actually need it, because they are supposed to investigate every claim that comes in, okay? Do they always do that? No, but that's what they're supposed to do. So I wish all parents took good care of their children. I wished all parents didn't abuse their children or neglect their children, and then we wouldn't need these types of services. But unfortunately, I live in reality, as do you, and we know there are a lot of bad parents. As a parent myself, I don't understand it. I will never understand it, but it is what it is. It's not going away. It's not getting better. I would even argue and say it's probably getting worse. So it's not going anywhere. Ideally, it'd be great if we can just all take care of our responsibilities and care and nurture the people we create. But again, this is reality, and not everybody can do that. And I'm going to come back to this and link it all together for you. But first, what we're going to do is we are going to go 51 years ahead from 1967, when they started to more so focus on abuse and neglect and substance abuse as reasons to remove children from their parents. So now 51 years later, a beautiful little girl named Harmony Montgomery was born to Adam Montgomery and Crystal Sorey. I think that is how you pronounce her last name. It is Sorey. And she was born on June 7th, 2014. Harmony would currently be 7 years old. She has blonde hair, blue eyes, and estimated to be about 4 feet tall and 50 pounds. If I had to make a guess off of pictures, I would say the weight is probably slightly off, but honestly, the height and weight really doesn't matter. Her face matters. Her features matter. And specifically, her right eye, since she is blind in that eye. And it does sort of look like she has a lazy eye, so it is something that is noticeable about her. Excuse me, I got the hiccups again. Harmony's missing from Manchester, New Hampshire. And the last it seems that anyone saw Harmony was the fall to beginning of winter time frame. And we're going to get into that. And this is of 2019. but she was just reported missing. And you may be confused because I said she was last seen in the fall or early winter of 2019, but I didn't make any mistake when I said that. Despite us just finding out about this little girl, she's actually been missing for 2 years. And she was 5 at the time. We're going on the 25th month. Possibly more. Okay? Yes, we just learned about this little girl. 2 years she's been missing. We're going to get started, okay? And this is a trigger warning right now. I have a very blunt opinion about the whole thing. And if you can't handle triggering topics of abuse, abandonment, neglect, addiction, and more, this is your opportunity to exit now. In addition, if you can't handle any type of blunt view of mine about this case and don't think that you'd be able to listen to me talk about my opinion without getting angry or defensive, this is also your time to click out. This case really hurts my freaking heart and my damn head. And I'm actually glad that my last recording didn't save, as I said, because I started to go on a very angry rant, which is not what I wanted to do. And I wanted to really talk about this because this is a really important topic. So now that we covered all of that, now let's travel back 7 years before Harmony entered the world. And let's go to 2007, which is when her father's criminal history began. And his history includes things from, robbery to first-degree assault to stalking to shooting a man in the head. And we'll get to that. Adam Montgomery, he is currently 31 years old. And so, 2007, when this history began, was 15 years ago. And that means he was about 16 years old. But just because it seems that the history began then, I'm not sure if there was more prior to that. And just because the history starts then doesn't mean that he wasn't doing illegal things prior to that. It just means, that he hadn't been caught or charged with any crimes until 2007. Now, Harmony's mother, Crystal Sorey, is also 31, and she too has a criminal history as well. I can find stuff back in 2011. It may have been before that, but I just have not seen it. They were both addicts, and they were both in their early 20s when they conceived beautiful Harmony. After conceiving Harmony, 4 months later, Adam, the father, went to meet a drug dealer to buy heroin, and the drug deal went wrong, resulting in a man being shot in the head. He did survive. Adam was also shot during the altercation in the arm, and both men were shot with the same gun by another man. Adam was shot by another man, and Adam shot the other guy in the head. And Adam, despite being shot in the arm, fled the scene, and he didn't go to a hospital. And this took place on January 24th of 2014, and Crystal was 4 months pregnant with Harmony. Once the U.S. Marshals tracked down and arrested Adam for the shooting 4 days later on the 28th, they also arrested a pregnant Crystal Sorey, who was hiding out in a shed in freezing temperatures. She was arrested for helping Adam evade police, which means this sweet girl Harmony was in her mother's womb and spent time in a jail cell. So her life was doomed before it even began. March of 2014, so 2 months later, is when Adam was officially charged with the shooting. June 7, 2014, Harmony was born. It was said, through rumors that she was in active addiction while pregnant with Harmony, and that Harmony's first stint with DCF in Massachusetts, which stands for, Department of Children and Families, it was said that, during her pregnancy, due to the drugs, is what caused Harmony to be blind in her right eye. I cannot fully confirm this information, so take what you want from it, but it was said by people who knew her. 3 months after she was born, September 2014, Adam ends up making a deal and ultimately was sentenced to only 18 months. Yep, you heard that right. 18 months for trying to buy heroin and shooting a freaking man in his head. Now, keep this in mind, because if this story is new to you, it's going to blow your mind what happens later. This time, so far, seems mostly unknown, except we know that Adam spent time in the Department of Corrections. And by this time frame, I'm talking about from September 2014, when he was sentenced, to July of 2018. This period of time, I can't really fill in the gaps, other than Adam obviously did his time in Department of Corrections. And at some point when Harmony was 9 months old, she was staying with her mother in a substance abuse shelter for women. Let me correct that. Harmony was with foster care while her mother was in a substance abuse shelter for mothers. I said that wrong. Also, during this period of time, Crystal ends up having another child, a little boy named Jameson, who does not appear to be the son of Adam. In July of 2018, Crystal, the mother, loses custody of Harmony and her little brother Jameson to the state of Massachusetts, and it was said that it was due in part to substance abuse issues. It had been said in part, and that's important because it means that it was more than just her substance abuse issues that caused them to remove the children. Fast forward a few months into February of 2019, Crystal signed all her rights over to Adam, and he took full legal custody of Harmony. Now think about this. When Harmony was 3 months old, he was sentenced to 18 months in the Department of Corrections, right? So if he did his full sentence, which he probably didn't, you're looking at her pushing almost 2 years old, and Crystal loses custody of her fully after she had lost her to the foster care system for, several times, and then she loses custody of her. So Harmony really didn't know Adam that well, okay? She didn't, because she was in and out of foster homes, and a period of her life he was in prison, and Crystal was fully aware of Adam's history. I mean, she knew he shot a man in the head during a drug deal for heroin. Right? She knew he had addiction issues. She knew he was violent. She knew he had been arrested many, many, many times. And yet, she signed her rights over. Now, she lost the children to the state, but she ended up fully signing her rights over. Now, we don't know if it was voluntary or involuntary. Regardless, there seems to be no fight for Adam not to take Harmony. And I think that's really important, because a lot of people are saying mom tried to do the best thing and give her a better life by signing her rights over to Adam. But really, what kind of life was it with Adam, who was also an addict and also had a very lengthy criminal history, and a man that she was very well aware of his history. So, was that the best decision? Was she really better off with him rather than her, a foster family or being adopted out of foster care? Personally, and we're going to get into it, to me, I don't think this was the right decision. But he is the biological parent, and maybe it was actually DCF that pushed this idea of let's try to put Harmony with her biological other parent. Which, if so, okay, then we can definitely get mad at them for that, because what the hell were you thinking? At the same time, though, like I said, it doesn't seem like she pushed back against that and said, can you just try to put her in a foster family and adopt her out? Not that she really would have had a say, but so far as the story has been told, it doesn't seem like that was even discussed. It just was like straight to Adam. So not only was DCF seemingly okay with giving this child to Adam, but Crystal, it seems, was okay with that, as was people in Crystal's family. And, they knew about Adam. Surely they knew he had time in prison for shooting a man in the head. And none of her family seemed to step forward to try to get custody of the child. You often see that, where grandparents will come forth and say, I don't want my grandparents in foster care, I'll adopt them. So maybe they did try that. We don't know. But it definitely seems that nobody had an issue with this child going to a man that she hardly knew and had a very lengthy history, a dangerous history. Once this took place, as far as the legal custody, of course, Harmony ends up moving with Adam to where he lived in New Hampshire. And we recently found out that an out-of-state resident with a long criminal history like his case did not have an interstate compact on the placement of children, which is called an ICPC, in place. There was none. And that is basically to ensure the care of a child is covered across state lines as far as proper services, safeguards, and regular check-ins. So when Harmony left Massachusetts to go live in New Hampshire, there was no ICPC in place, which basically ended DCF's involvement in her life, and the department closed her case. What we don't know at this time is, did Massachusetts DCF never request an ICPC be put in place, which is normal protocol, or did they request it and New Hampshire declined it? And the reason why this is a question is because under Massachusetts regulations, when a child is going to custody of a biological parent, an ICPC is not required. And Adam was her biological parent. So that's one of the biggest questions here. What the hell happened here where an ICPC ended up not being put in place? And is it because Adam was her biological parent and they were just like, we're not doing one, and so he was just able to uproot her, go to another state with her, and therefore was no longer being monitored or required to check in about the welfare of Harmony? Right prior to all of this, Adam actually had remarried a woman named Kayla, and at that time, in 2019, they did have 2 children together. She later has a 3rd child after Harmony goes, quote unquote, missing. So that was February of 2019. So the custody goes through. He takes her to New Hampshire. She is with him, his new wife, Kayla, their 2 children at the time, and Harmony. April of 2019, Crystal, her biological mother, FaceTimed with Harmony, and Adam was in the background. Crystal is now claiming that was the last time she ever saw her daughter Harmony. Now, mind you, she had no legal rights at all. No calls or visits, no nothing, okay? So technically, Adam didn't have to allow her to speak to the child or to see the child because she no longer had any rights to the child. But it seems he did allow it, at least on Easter. We don't know if he allowed it in February or March after he got custody, but we know that it definitely happened in April around Easter, at least according to Crystal, because her claim is that was the last time she ever saw her daughter. Now, 2 months later, on June 7th, the day of actually Harmony's birthday, a couple, who we're going to call the Millers, took Jameson, which is the brother, into their custody. And one of them is actually a reporter for a Boston news station. The adoption for Jameson happened later in the fall, where it was finalized. Also, in June of 2019, Harmony was seen several times by a great aunt on Adam's side, and she even spent a weekend at their home for a sleepover. Now, in July of 2019, Adam's uncle, Kevin Montgomery, sees Harmony and Adam, and allegedly, keyword, Harmony had a black eye. He also alleges that Adam actually told him that he was the one to cause Harmony's black eye. And according to Kevin, Adam told him that he had put Harmony in charge of her infant sibling and that the infant was crying. And while he was in the bathroom and Harmony was looking after him, when he started to cry, she put her hand over his mouth, and when he came out from the bathroom and found her doing that, he struck her, causing the black eye, and he allegedly told his uncle, quote, "I bashed her all over this house," unquote. So, I say allegedly because those are allegations and accusations by his uncle. Did it probably happen? Yeah, it probably did. But words aren't fact. And there's no proof that Adam ever told his uncle this. And there's no evidence that she had a black eye back in July of 2019. And Kevin claims that he called DCYF, which is what it's called in New Hampshire, but he never heard anything back. Now, to be fair, I know people who have contacted child services before, and unless they need you to testify or if they need a further statement from you, they typically don't call you back before or after investigating. They usually take the claim and they investigate it and then they take it from there, depending on what they find. Because, I mean, think about it. You, as the person making the claim, are not entitled or privy to what has unfolded about the welfare of a child that isn't yours just because you're the one who called the claim in. So he claims that DCYF did nothing about it, but we just don't know that for sure. And we don't know if his calls were ignored, investigated, or what. We have no idea. And you know, it sounds kind of crazy to me that Adam would just come out and tell his uncle that he gave his 5-year-old daughter a black eye. At the same time, I have seen sometimes men sort of gloat about harming their child to make them look all big and bad, like, oh yeah, like I whipped her ass. So it's possible, and well, Adam seems crazy, so maybe he's crazy enough to tell his uncle that. Anyway, these are the uncle's claims. Again, they're claims, because how are you going to prove that this girl who's been missing for 2 years had a black eye in July of 2019? And how are you going to prove that Adam told you that he caused it? I mean, unless you have him on video or you have pictures, I don't know how you're going to prove that. 3 months later, there was an altercation, and again, this involved Kevin, the uncle, and he tried to get into a home, and he was pushing on the door, and I guess him and Adam were going at it, which prompted the police to arrive. I haven't seen anywhere, or maybe I just missed it, but I haven't seen what the argument or altercation was about. Maybe it was about him harming Harmony? I don't know, because it was 3 months later, and I would think that after he, tells you in July to your face that he gave his little 5-year-old daughter a black eye, that you'd probably go for his throat right then and there, but that doesn't seem to be what happened, and then 3 months later, there's this altercation, and I have no idea why. So anyway, the police arrive, and after this altercation, Adam proceeded to allegedly block all of his family on social media and their phone numbers. Harmony was there, and according to Adam's uncle Kevin, Harmony looked terrified. Which, I mean, yeah, she's 5, and she's got these grown-ass adults having this altercation bad enough for police to arrive, and she's got history of being taken away, so she was probably freaking terrified during that ordeal. So that makes total sense. I think he was trying to imply that she looked terrified of him. I would say she probably looked terrified due to the situation. Okay, she sees the police and the lights, and she probably has a trigger of her being removed so many other times, and she was probably just scared. I mean, she's a 5-year-old little girl. The only good thing about this event was that we actually know, because police showed up, that Harmony was okay and that she was alive and in the care of Adam at that time. And I say that's good information to know because there are November and December claims of her being seen, but that's according to Adam and his wife Kayla and Kayla's mother. And honestly, I don't think we could take any of their words for it, that she was seen in November or December. So I think we can say for sure, at least October, she was okay and still in their care. Okay, so that's 2019, remember. August of 2019, so just 2 months prior to this, I missed this part, the Millers, who had adopted Jameson, inquired about adopting Harmony as well to keep Jameson with his sister since they did have a close bond. And at that time, they were told that Harmony had been reunited with her father, so obviously they could not do that. And September of 2019, a home on Guilford Street was purchased, and Adam, Kayla, and the children moved into it. And this home was recently searched in connection to Harmony's disappearance, and we'll talk about that later in the timeline. Then October was the altercation with the uncle, which sparked the police coming. And we know that October of 2019, she was at minimum alive. Now, November 2019, the Millers' adoption of Jameson was finalized. And they reached out to Crystal, her mother, who at that point had not seen or talked to Harmony since Easter, so 7 months. And they said to her, we want to get in touch with Adam and Harmony because we want to send Harmony a Christmas present from Jameson. And at that time, Crystal told them that Adam was not letting her see her daughter or talk to her. So in November of 2019, they're finding out that not even Crystal is in contact with Jameson's sister, Harmony. And this is where it all falls apart. According to Adam, around Thanksgiving of 2019, Adam says that Crystal, the mother that signed her rights over, went to New Hampshire to get Harmony. This is his claim from a recent affidavit, which we are going to talk about. And of course, right, this makes absolutely no damn sense at all. He had full legal custody and he had her only 9 months. Why on earth would he be giving the girl back to the mother who lost the children to the state and then had to sign her rights over to him? But that being said, it's really not that far-fetched. And some of you who know this story may be thinking that I'm nuts. But just hold on, okay? Don't freak out and tell me that mother does not have Harmony. When we get to theories and possibilities later, we're going to discuss it further. We cannot cross it off the list yet that this actually did not happen, even though I am definitely leaning more towards not believing Adam. But we're going to discuss that more in theories. Now, according to his wife, who he's now separated from and shares 3 kids with, her claim in a police interview recently was that she last saw her stepdaughter, Harmony, when Adam told her he was taking Harmony to her mother. Which, right off the bat, right, this is a conflicting story from Adam's. Adam says that Crystal went to New Hampshire to get Harmony, and the wife is saying that he took Harmony to the wife. Now, here comes my little mini rant about Kayla, okay? You're married to this man. You have children of your own. I think she definitely has issues of her own, but I didn't dig that far yet. And your husband, who you know has full legal custody of this stepdaughter of yours, comes to you and says, I'm taking Harmony to her mother. And you don't stop to say, what? What do you mean you're taking her to her mother? What are you talking about? You have full legal custody. What? You didn't ask questions? You didn't wonder what the hell? Nah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. That's impossible to me. Because I would think that most people would automatically be like, wait, what? Why the hell are you bringing her back to her? She doesn't have any rights to her. You have custody. You can't just bring her to her. We're going to get in trouble. If DCF finds out that she has her now, like, we're going to be in trouble for that. No, apparently not. Because she's not really talking much. And it's written like it was very nonchalant, like, oh, well, he was just taking her back to her mother. What? What? This didn't raise any red flags. You're just like, oh, okay. Well, I got a whole bunch of kids myself, so, all right, bye, Harmony, peace out. Oh, my Lord, have mercy. And she was with him for another 1.5, 2 years. And during that 1.5, 2 years, you didn't once wonder, how's Harmony? Have you talked to Crystal to check on Harmony? Did you see Harmony? Do you know how she's... None of that? In 1.5, 2 years, you didn't once ask about your stepdaughter and how she was? You gotta be shitting me. This is becoming long, but I want to get through the timeline, and then I'm going to make a part 2. I'll upload them both, where I want to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. So let me get through this before I lose my freaking mind, because that right there just makes me want to punch this woman in her face. Allegedly. Okay? Allegedly, it makes me want to punch her in the face. I understand it's not her child. I understand that Harmony wasn't in her care for very long. Maybe she didn't bond with her. Maybe she didn't like her. I don't know. But you had to have been suspicious. You're going to tell me that you weren't involved in his affairs? That you didn't wonder why he was just giving this girl back to the mother who no longer had any rights? Oh my God. I don't want to keep saying it, so I'm just going to move on. Anyways, so these two allege that in November of 2019 is when they last saw her, because either, according to Adam, Crystal went to New Hampshire to get her, and according to Kayla, Adam brought her to Crystal. So it's definitely not looking great for Adam and Kayla, in my opinion. So now, goodness gracious, I just cannot even. So now 5 months later, in April of 2020, the home the family was living in went up for sale, and it sold in May of 2020. So 7 months after moving into this home, it went up for sale. And this was, again, roughly 5 to 6 months after Harmony was allegedly last seen, that they moved out of this home. And in November of 2020, the great aunt that we talked about earlier, Kendra, finally got to speak with Adam to congratulate him on his third baby with Kayla. Which means, if you do the math, that when Harmony went quote-unquote missing in the fall, early winter of 2019, Kayla was newly pregnant with their third child. And according to Kendra, this conversation was normal. They talked about the pandemic and the kids being out of school because of the pandemic and how everybody was doing okay, but that they were now living in an apartment and had been living out of a car prior to that. July of 2021, Crystal, who has contact with the Millers who adopted her son Jameson, tells the Millers that she thinks that she finally found Harmony and Adam, but that she reached out to Adam through Facebook and Adam immediately blocked her. So now, remember that it was November of 2019 when they officially adopted Jameson that they first asked for contact information to send Harmony a present, and it was at that time that she said that she hasn't had contact with her daughter in months and that Adam was keeping her from speaking to her and seeing her, which again, he didn't have to. She had no legal rights. So now you fast forward a year and a half later into July of 2021, she's telling the Millers, I think I found Harmony and Adam, but he blocked me on Facebook. Now, you can take this any which way you want to. This is how I'm taking it. It seems to me that it was the Millers who were really pushing finding Harmony, because they were really wanting Harmony to have this relationship with their son, legally now, Jameson, because they realized that Jameson missed his sister very much, and they had a very close bond. And so they were really trying to find her and make contact with her for the sake of Jameson. And it seems to me, in my opinion, that the Millers pushing this and wanting to find and have contact with Harmony is what caused the mother to look for Harmony. Now, again, that's my opinion. And thank God for the Millers pushing this need to get in contact with Adam so they can form some type of relationship, or at least attempt to, between Harmony and Jameson. That same month, Kayla's mother got a restraining order against Adam. We're going to discuss that restraining order in the next video, so we will come back to that. Mid-September of 2021, so just this past September, the Millers then attempted to contact Adam via Facebook. And I'm thinking that in their minds, they were probably thinking, maybe he's just ignoring her. Maybe we shouldn't go through her. Maybe we should directly try to contact him. Maybe he'll talk to us if he's not talking to her. But they were unsuccessful and could not get in contact with Adam. In late October of 2021, Kayla and Adam split. Adam went into a sober house, and apparently he was having an affair, and this is the month that Kayla claims was the last time she saw Adam, and that she last spoke to him in December. Now, on November 18th of 2021, Crystal called the Manchester police to report Harmony missing. Again, remember that she had no legal custody or rights, and therefore the police would basically turn to DCYF to check on the welfare of Harmony, not them. And I think that's key to remember here. This wasn't two parents who shared custody. This was one had no custody of her daughter, and Adam was within his legal right to withhold the child from her. Crystal claims that she contacted DCYF, and her claim is 14 times, and that they never got back to her. Now, that could be true. It can also be an exaggeration, or it can be a total lie. Time will tell. Just because she says that she contacted them 14 times doesn't mean that she actually did. That is not a fact. And I'm seeing a lot of people running around going, she did try to find her. She did try to find her, all because Crystal is saying that she tried to find her and that she did call DCYF. Maybe she has proof of this. Great. I hope she does. I hope we get to see it one day. I know we're not privy to it, but I would like to see the proof. But her word that she called and they didn't do anything 14 times is not fact, unfortunately. And we have to make that distinction. Because if she called 14 times and Kevin, the uncle of Adam, called several times, and other family members are claiming they also called, you mean to tell me that all of these calls, which reaches into the 20 different phone calls from several different people, that DCYF ignored all of them? I'm sorry. I'm a natural skeptical type of person, and I find that really hard to believe. Unless DCYF is just horrific in New Hampshire, which it may be. I just find that hard to believe. Now, if one person had called several times and got nothing, then I would say, okay, maybe. But several different people calling multiple different times, one claiming 14 times, and nobody heard anything at all, I don't know. But again, we have to go back to, none of these people have any legal rights to Harmony. And the people that I know who have contacted child welfare services never got phone calls back to hear what happened or if they investigated it. Maybe it varies by state. Maybe some do, maybe some don't. I know the ones because I asked them before recording this, and they said they never got a call back. One said that they did, but it was because she had to testify in court. So it could be that their calls weren't ignored, but that maybe at some point DCYF did investigate, and at that time maybe she, I don't know. Maybe she was okay. Like if it was in, late 2019, maybe she was still around at that time. And then when more calls came in, they were thinking, well, we just checked on her, 3 months ago and she was fine. Why are they calling again? I don't know. We don't have the records for DCYF. My entire point here is that they're all claiming that they all called DCYF and that they were all ignored. So this resulted in Crystal deciding to email, not call or try to get an appointment, but email the mayor's office. And the email basically described, DCYF not following up. And the mayor's office did confirm that an individual wrote to their office and talked about how the email was concerning DCYF and that they responded back to that individual the same day and said that if she felt the child was in danger to immediately call 911 or to send them the information and they would relay it to Manchester Police Department. And they claim that they did end up forwarding the information to the Manchester Police Department. And, again, this would be a child welfare issue, since that is how the child was placed with Adam to begin with. So it sounds like the police did what I would expect them to do, and they reached out to DCYF at that point, and they were trying to get them to locate Harmony and check on her welfare rather than them doing it, because again, Adam had legal right to withhold the child from Crystal. 2 weeks later, on December 27th of 2021, so just, 11 days ago, DCYF calls the Manchester Police Department and they tell them, we can't find Harmony. On December 30th, the Manchester Police goes and speaks with Adam's brother, Michael Montgomery. He too raises concerns during his interview about Harmony's welfare. And then they also spoke to the uncle Kevin, and he told him about all these different forms of abuse against her and what happened in July of 2019 involving the black eye, etc. On December 31st, so New Year's Eve, the police hold a news conference to announce that Harmony was missing. And they also had interviewed Kayla that day, the stepmom, and they also made contact with Adam finally. And he was found sleeping in a car with the new girlfriend named Kelsey Small. And Adam gave contradicting statements to the police during that stop. And at one point, he basically said, unless I'm under arrest, I have nothing left to say here, yada, yada, yada. And he stopped cooperating, which doesn't surprise me because this is a man who has a very long criminal history. And so he knows what his rights are. And he knows that unless he's under arrest, he doesn't have to say anything. So he chose to do that. And on the 2nd of January, police did search the property where the family had lived at the time that Harmony was last seen. And on the 3rd, the police held a news conference. They announced that there is a cash reward. They announced a tip line. That reward has gone up to $94,000 because there's a lot of business type people who are donating, $5,000, $10,000, etc. Everybody is really wanting this case to be solved and Harmony to be found. On January 4th, Adam, the father, was arrested and charged with 1 count of felony second-degree assault, 1 misdemeanor charge of interference with custody, and 2 misdemeanor charges of endangering the welfare of a child. Not anything really related to Harmony being missing. Now, this is totally normal. This is what you should see. This is what should have been done with Brian Laundrie in the Gabby Petito case, but I digress. But this is a way to get them into custody, to try to get them talking, to bargain with them, etc. So it did not surprise me in the least that they pulled this. You see this very, very often. But in my next video, we are going to talk about those charges. The next day, on the 5th, Kayla, the stepmother, who is now separated or estranged from Adam, was arrested for felony welfare fraud. So apparently, from the time that she claimed she last saw Harmony until June of 2021, she was collecting food stamps in Harmony's name. Like, she was on her account. And obviously, if the child wasn't in her care and she's saying that Harmony was with her mother, why is she collecting food stamps for a child she doesn't have in her care? Now, do you think the police really care about welfare fraud when it comes to the story? No. They care about finding Harmony. So this charge was just, again, a way to get her into custody in hopes that they can get more information out of her. In addition to that, they were claiming Harmony on their taxes, which means that they were also collecting the stimulus payments that a lot of us received over the last 2 years during the pandemic, but there was no charges for that, at least not yet. It is now January 7th. By the time you might listen to this, it would be January 8th. We still have no information about Harmony's whereabouts, what has happened. And there's so much that is unknown. Now, there is another character in this story, and his name is Joe. And this is allegedly Crystal's boyfriend, or was her boyfriend at some point at least. And we're going to talk about him a little bit later, especially in series, and that will be in the next video. I have a lot more I want to discuss with you, and if I continue, we're looking at, like, I don't even know, another hour and a half. So I'm going to end this one. I'm going to record the second one, and then I also had my other story that I wanted to bring you, which was Oakley Carlson, but I didn't realize how much I had to say about this one, so I'm going to do Oakley Sunday night, because I'm going to be out all day tomorrow, because it's Saturday, and I'm thinking of doing a live sometime next week, but I want to get people's comments on what a good day is, but I'll have to be at night, because I don't want to go live and there be 2 people. That'd be really embarrassing and dumb. So anyways, let's end there for right now, and then I'll get started after I have a drink for my throat here in just a few minutes. This story just I don't understand. I don't understand. I really don't. And I'm glad that I'll never understand, because that means that I would never be in these types of situations. And it breaks your heart, because I spent the last week, building toys for my kids from Santa, and putting batteries and showing them how they work, and setting it up and organizing and seeing their excitement. And you think about this little girl, and 2 years, and no one seemed to really push, go to the media, show up to the mayor's house, scream and protest outside the police station, like nothing, like she wasn't even worth that. It breaks my heart. It's so sad. I can't even fathom. Oh my gosh. But anyways, so let me stop there, and we will pick up in the next one. So I usually say until next time, I'll see you soon, but it's going to be literally 2 seconds. So be back in a minute.